So if you've watched our other videos talking about Bloom's taxonomy, relational learning, you know that a really big part of learning effectively is about creating these really meaningful relationships and about really focusing on those relationships and working at that higher order learning. So if you haven't watched our video on Bloom's taxonomy, make sure to watch that first. Otherwise, this is not really going to make a lot of sense to you. And if you haven't watched our video on memory hacking and how you can use relational learning to not need to memorize as much, make sure to watch that as well, because again, this is going to really make a lot more sense if you watch that first. But now I want to talk a little bit about the way of writing notes using mind maps to help emphasize that. And the thing that I want to say about mind maps is that I'll do these talks, and I remember actually doing a talk a number of years ago, and it was my first time teaching study skills to a big group of students. I think there was about 150 to 200 students in a seminar room, and I was teaching them on study skills. And before that, I'd never taught for more than like 50 or 60 people at a time. And one of the things that happens when you teach a big group of people is that you have to teach it in such a way that accounts for all the things that you don't anticipate, because in a smaller group, people will put their hand up and ask a question. In a big group, there's so many things that people might be thinking that they're not free to share. So you have to think about it a lot more. And one of the questions that I got asked after introducing mind maps was, what is a technique other than mind maps that will help me with my relationships? Which I thought was a very interesting question, because number one, I thought, why do you want a technique other than mind maps? And number two is, why are you not willing to try this in the first place? And so over the years, I've had that question come up more and more often. There's a lot of people that ask me, what is another technique other than mind maps? And a lot of the time I find that it's because this person has either had a previous experience doing mind maps that wasn't effective for them, or they are trying to do mind maps and they find that it's really difficult, and therefore they want to use another technique which is easier for them. And it's important to realize that just like learning any new skill, it's going to be difficult at the beginning, but it doesn't mean that you should stop pursuing and mastering the skill, because if it's really effective, then the time you invest in learning to be better at it is going to pay for itself. And mind maps is definitely one of those things. I would say that if you're finding mind maps easy to begin with and you've never been taught how to do it properly, there's a really big chance that actually you're doing it wrong, or maybe not completely wrong, but not as correctly as you could be doing it, and getting the maximum level of benefit. So mind maps are surprisingly a very technical and very specific technique that most people are not doing correctly. And so I'm going to go through a few mind maps right now and talk about the goods and the bads behind them, as well as some guidelines that you need to follow to make sure that you're doing the mind maps correctly. The other thing that I'll say is that even if you've had a bad experience with mind maps in the past, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a bad experience moving forward into the future, because if you use the mind map technique and you didn't find it effective, then there is a greater chance that you did it incorrectly than the chance of you having done it correctly and mind maps just inherently not working for you. In the thousands of students, around 3,000 students that I've worked with around study skills, maybe one of those students didn't suit using mind maps. And even then, I'm a little bit on the fence about it. I have never really met a student that did the mind map technique correctly and also found that it was ineffective. I've only ever seen students do it incorrectly and find that it was ineffective. That I see all the time, or almost on a daily basis, actually, I see that. But if you've tried the mind map technique before, stay open-minded, because it's not likely that it's not going to inherently not work for you, because your brain is probably not wired so specifically that this whole way of writing notes doesn't work. There might be certain stylistic preferences and tendencies that are unique to you that make certain aspects of it more or less effective, but it's just incredibly unlikely that it's not going to work for you, because it's one of the fundamental, it's based and it's derived on one of the fundamental things about how the human brain works. So if you're a human and you've got a human brain, chances are it's going to work if you use the technique correctly. So actually, let's take a look at some of these mind maps and evaluate some of them. So I just Googled mind map here, and I think this is a good starting point before we move on to a couple more specific examples. So when you look at this mind map, there's a few things that stick out to me, a few red flags. So this thing here, Okay, these ones are all typed mind maps. Okay, these are all typed mind maps. And the thing with a typed mind map, the good thing is obviously that because it's typed, it's neater and it's faster to do, and it's easier to rearrange material. Now, this is actually not necessarily a good thing. And in fact, most of the time it's a bad thing. And the reason it's more of a bad thing is because when you type a mind map, it's so easy to put a lot of information on there that you're not having to think and process what's necessary to put onto your mind map. You're not having to think more deeply in terms of how to arrange things in space, because it's so easy. And what that does is that it triggers more passive learning, and we don't want that. And there's a lot of research on this around cognitive load and difficulty, and trying to figure out how much to write, where to write, and how to arrange it in space, that students often struggle with when they're making mind maps, so that it's not just too messy. But doing it like this, even though it makes it cleaner, it's making it cleaner by relying on the computer and the software to do it for you, which actually defeats the purpose, because it's the process of making it cleaner that forces you to activate higher order learning in terms of Bloom's taxonomy. So by trying to think about the relationships in relation to each other, and thinking which concepts or which chunk and group of information is more important than another group, it forces you to examine them in a more critical level of depth. And because you need to figure out how to put them on the page, you're going to examine them at a much higher level, and that produces a greater level of retention and learning. So we don't want to make it easier by relying on software. We actually do want to be doing our mind maps freehand. So all of these sorts of things, the arrangement is not bad, it's not great, but it's not bad. However, the fact that it's done through a computer is going to make it less memorable. So let's have a look at this one. Okay, this one you can conceivably, this is done through the computer obviously, but you can conceive that this mind map might have been done by hand as well. You could potentially do this by hand. So what's the problem with this one? Well, you can see that this mind map is very messy. So what does a messy mind map mean? A messy mind map often means that the relationships haven't been prioritized enough. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different things coming off from this central theme. And that means that we're unlikely to have done sufficient chunking. And chunking, if you remember from our other videos, is the process of grouping information together. And one of the most common ways that we group information is by asking, why is it important? So let's have a look at some of these things. This is a mind map based on whole food, plant-based living. And I haven't looked at this mind map before. I have no idea really what it's about. But if I look at this now, I take these 7 different things. Can I find a way to combine or categorize these so that instead of 7 different things, we've got maybe 5 or 4 or even 3 different things? So we could, I can see straight away, we could have shopping, well stocked, and before you start cooking in terms of preparation. So we could have one branch coming off of this called preparation. And underneath that single branch, we could have shopping, well stocked, and before you start cooking as sub branches. Then we could have chopping, mindset, surviving social events, and don't go hungry. Maybe we could have that as the other 3 things coming off of that, or 4 things coming off of that. So we'd have 5 instead of 7. And we could probably categorize it a little bit more if I spent more time reading through that. Same thing goes here. We've got, this is obviously done by hand. What's done really well is that the branches are really, really clear. It's a lot clearer to see. However, what's not done as well is that there are certain things that probably can be combined a little bit more. So for example, we could have, this is obviously about tennis. This is actually surprisingly a relatively good mind map. It's using a lot of pictures. It has non-verbal expression. Our brain's ability to process visual information like diagrams and pictures is tens of thousands of times faster than our ability to process written information. So having images is a good thing. It not only forces you to use your brain in a different way, which is using a abstract and artistic part of your brain, which is often not used in learning. So that increases your level of retention. But also it means that when you're revising it, it's actually faster to process information than if you were to read it line by line. So that's actually very good, and the things are done very, very clearly. However, let's say we've got principles, shots, and then surfaces. Well, we've got scoring and then tournaments. We could potentially group those together in terms of maybe competition, and then say, underneath competition, you've got tournaments and scoring as an example. This mind map here that we can see about T-ma-bed or something. In fact, I'll choose another one because I don't even know what that means. But let's have a look at this one here. So this is a mind map about mind mapping, I guess. And this is done not very well. Not very well because you can see under uses, you have a massive list of stuff that's done here. It isn't categorized further whatsoever. So this person is not going to find it's very easy to remember this. They're going to have to end up memorizing this stuff anyway. There are no real relationships here. The only relationship that's been formed is that mind map has uses and there are these uses. That's the only relationship. We don't have any relationship between the uses and how we can mind map. We don't have any between the why and the uses or the why and the how. There are no relationships between any of these. So this is almost the same as just having a list that you memorize, but it's arranged on this page. So the person that made this mind map, they're gonna find that it wasn't very effective. They'll probably find that this area is completely not effective at all. They might find this area a little bit more easy, this area where we've got subcategorization a little bit easier to understand. So there's a few trends that I hope you're able to pick up from what I've been doing with going over these mind maps. The first is that we need to make the relationships really clear. The second is that we need to categorize the information a lot, and that starts from the way that we're processing and studying it in our brain in terms of making sure that we're trying to find similarities and differences and categorize and focusing on those relationships, those questions of why is it important and how does it relate together. These are the things that we want to be really focusing a lot of our attention on. So let's have a look at some other mind maps that I've had submitted to me from previous students. This is a mind map that someone sent to me. The good thing is that it's got a lot of visual aspects to it. However, the relationships are very unclear. There is categorization, but there's no relationship between the categories. So overall, this is not going to be super well retained. Let's have a look at another one. This one is done pretty well. However, what you can see is that there isn't a clear direction or what we call mind map flow, in that we're not sure what the most important concepts are. There's an idea that it's this one, and this one, but it should be emphasized a little bit more so that we're using our visual processing more. Especially some of these things, I think a number of words is a bit too much, and we can actually replace these with some doodles or diagrams or some kind of abstract representation like symbols, again using more parts of the brain. Now you might be thinking, hey Justin, I don't really learn in pictures and diagrams and everything. And for you, I would say watch our video on learning styles and why this is the biggest lie that we're all led to believe, which is completely against the research. The summary of it is that actually all human brains, and I mean all human brains, yes you too, you have the ability to learn through diagrams and pictures and listening and all different forms. It's just about what you're used to. And actually what the research says is that people that are able to use multiple different styles of learning have a consistently higher level of performance, retention, outcome, and overall do better in school and with their grades. So even if you're not used to it, it's in your best interest to develop that skill, because it's not about the inherent way your brain is formed, it's purely a skill. And then let's have a look at this one. So this one again is a very different type of mind map. The thing here is that there is a good level of categorization that's occurred in some of these, except for example, this one, you can see that the categorization can be done a lot more. This is basically just a list here to memorize. That's not going to be hard to remember. That's going to be difficult to remember. This can probably categorize a little bit more, 5 points here. We can categorize this thing a little bit better into some subcategories. But there are some images that are being used. The images probably need to be fleshed out a little bit more to be more memorable. But the main weakness here is that it's very difficult to see the relationships between everything. It seems more like a hierarchy or like a flow chart, and you're not getting a clear understanding of how different concepts or different chunks of information relate and influence each other. So when asking the question, why is it important, this person probably didn't explore that as much. So, few tips in terms of how to do a good mind map. The first thing is make sure that you're always grouping information as much as possible. If you ever have a point on your mind map where there are more than 4 branches coming off of it, always look at it and think, can I subcategorize this? 9 times out of 10, you will be able to, and maybe you need to learn and Google something in order to do that, and that also helps you with your retention and your learning. The second thing is make the relationships really, really clear. You should be able to see how the information relates to each other and influences each other. And it should be very, very clear as soon as you look at it within the first second, even before you're able to read it. Purely the orientation of the ideas in space should represent how the information flows together. So those are just some of the basics. Now, mind map technique goes way in depth. Through our course, we go through mind map technique multiple different times. It's by far the most common piece of feedback that I get. I'll get an email probably, once every day or two with someone submitting a mind map for me to review. It's the one that is a technique that takes a very long time to master. And that's why we spend such a long time going through it in the course. So these are some of the basic guidelines for you to just start using it and maybe thinking about how you're not using the mind map as effectively. Now, I know it's a big topic, so we will probably do more videos on this if you guys want, but hopefully this opened your eyes a little bit more in terms of mind maps and how the mind maps forced you to look at relationships and similarities and differences in terms of grouping it, which hopefully you realize is by default a higher order level of thinking on Bloom's taxonomy, which is why the pair go together so well and why it's such a great note-taking system for efficient relational priority learning. And again, if those terms are not familiar to you, watch those videos as well. Hope you learned something from this. Hope you found it helpful. Let me know what your experience has been with mind maps. Do you disagree with anything that I've said? Leave a comment below and I'd love to engage in the discussion. And if there's something that needs clarification, I can make another video on it in the future, really diving into it a little bit more. I think if you think that mind maps don't work for you, the video that I definitely recommend is our one on learning styles. But otherwise, if you liked our content, make sure to leave a thumbs up. It helps with the YouTube algorithm and getting more people to watch our video. If you like the stuff we're posting, make sure to subscribe. And until next time, I'll see you in the next one.